Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today I want to share with you one of my favorite single-player first-person shooter games of all time, and that is Crysis. Now the Crysis footage that you're seeing from my recent single-player playthrough looks like it could have been from a game that came out maybe yesterday, a game that was definitely launched in 2014, or maybe it's from a trailer or a sneak peek of a game that's coming out in 2015. The graphics in this game were so far ahead of its time 5 years ago that they even hold up today. Now when Crysis first came out, most people struggled to run the game on medium settings, let alone high or very high or even ultra settings. It was certainly a system hog and quickly became a standard for benchmarking PCs and really just testing what they were made of. But the enjoyment of the single player didn't simply come from its beautiful graphics or amazing physics engine. It really had to do with the way that they designed the levels and allowed you to approach combat situations from about 20 different angles or perspectives. You could attack from water, both in boat, or you could go swimming stealthily and try and come out of the shore in some sort of unexpected area. You could go gung-ho and drive a vehicle into a base and watch it explode and blow up a house and sort of distract the soldiers, or blow up a gas tank in the back part of the base and have the soldiers go investigate that. You could go stealth and go around in the jungles outside of a base and use dart guns to silently take out your enemies without them knowing what was going on. Each style of play had its own benefits and its own challenge. If you were a very good player and you wanted to go gung-ho, perhaps you could clear a base faster. But some of the bases and some of the AI was challenging enough that you really did have to approach some situations very stealthily and not engage too many opponents at once. Otherwise you'd find yourself in a bad situation real quick. The AI was very good about surrounding you. And although you are playing the role of a super soldier with a very high-tech nanosuit, it didn't take more than one enemy to sneak up on you at the wrong time to really take you out and make you have to play the mission over again. So stealth was a big part of the game, and especially when increasing the difficulty level, stealth became more of an important tactic to get through certain objectives. Now of course the nanosuit also gave you a lot of options on how you wanted to move around the map. You could use a power jump to jump up on top of a buildings and gain a vantage point, or use it to punch vehicles or soldiers across the map. You could use your stealth ability to sneak around. You could use your armor to absorb a lot of damage, and you could use your sprint or speed to get out of a bad situation very quickly, or perhaps cross a road very quickly before the enemy saw you. The tropical island environment really lends itself to all of these different gameplay styles, and it often started off missions with the ability to overlook massive landscapes with binoculars and sort of target things and decide how you want to approach it rather than make you choose on the fly. You can really plan out your missions. Now the enemy AI wasn't bad. It's not particularly impressive in close quarter firefights, but one thing that's really cool about it is that if you do engage somebody from really far away, enemies nearby will see dead bodies, they'll react to the gun sound from far away, and they'll come and try and hunt you down. So all of a sudden you think you're in a safe jungle environment, but the enemy's actually been tracking you and sneaking up on you. So you're getting ready to engage the next checkpoint of enemies and you think you're about to get the jump on them, when it turns out you're actually totally surrounded by the enemy AI. Although the storyline is linear, the level design is not, so it means that there's going to be a lot of enemy AI all around the map. And if you think you're engaging people in front of you, mostly the chances are you've actually forgotten about maybe a small base or a small contingent of enemies behind you, and they're going to hear the gunfire and all of a sudden sneak up and flank you from behind. Now certainly one of the coolest aspects to the single player was the environmental destruction and the fact that it wasn't just gimmicky, but it actually really lends itself to the strategy and the way that you can play the game. Lots of shacks that are completely destructible, guard towers that you can blow up 100%, and kind of blaze your own paths through the environment. You can use your super strength to even punch through walls. It was a very cool thing to see back in 2007, and although we do get a lot of environmental destruction in multiplayer games now, such as Battlefield 4, the physics engine in Crysis was very impressive, so the destruction seemed much more fluid and reactive rather than scripted. Now, as much as I loved the Crysis single player, it's not to say that it was a perfect game even for its time. The AI definitely was lacking in a lot of ways. There was a lot of weird bugs that made it through to launch and never really got fully patched up, like audio bugs, weird physics bugs where vehicles would get stuck and stuff and start making these really loud, annoying sounds. You could hurt your character in weird ways that didn't seem to make sense, like jumping off of ledges, did inconsistent fall damage. Not to mention the multiplayer aspect of the game was completely unbalanced, unbelievably laggy to the point where it was pretty much unplayable. It really did seem like a multiplayer alpha. I mean, the single player was great, but you know what, if you're going to ship a multiplayer, then you got to put a little bit more time into it. Now, the multiplayer was actually fixed up and improved a lot in the Crysis sequels. A lot of time was actually put into the multiplayer, and I thought the Crysis 3 multiplayer was absolutely excellent. The problem was that they got rid of all the awesome aspects of the single player of the first Crysis title in the sequels. You know, the open world style level design that allowed you to approach missions from any way you chose. Rather than doing this, they give you a very specific fork in the road that said, you know, do you want to play stealthy or do you want to play aggressive? Go left if you want to go stealthy, go right if you want to be aggressive. It didn't seem like you had as many options, and each area kind of had a very specific way that would make it easier to defeat the enemies. Oh, if you got to the weapon cache, that would give you some sort of super gun that would allow you to kill the baddies a little bit quicker, and it just didn't feel quite as fun or creative in the way that you went about things. So it was always kind of confusing to me why the sequels didn't play off of some of the greatest features of the first title. Fully scripted events ended up taking over a lot of the Crysis 2 and 3 single player, and that just for me kind of takes me out of the element, and it also gets rid of your freedom as a player to choose what you want to do, especially when events are unfolding in front of your eyes. And the Crysis engine really showed how much fun it can be to never take the player out of the element and take controls away from you, but to always make it feel like you are the player in control, witnessing all these events going on in front of you, and you have the ability to stop them or change them as they are actually unfolding. Now, when it comes to the storyline, it certainly feels like a very loosely laid out story that gives you an excuse to fight an army on a tropical island and aliens at the same time. It's all pretty hokey and silly, and the sequels unfortunately continue on with the exact same storyline, and in my opinion actually made it a little bit worse. Tried to get a little bit too serious with something that was kind of silly to begin with. But even so, the gameplay in the first Crysis game is so enjoyable and just so much fun to play and replay that it doesn't really matter if you're that into the story or that engaged by the events that are going around you. It's more of just kind of reacting to crazy combat situations all the time and trying to get out of these situations or trying to approach them differently. It's a challenging game, a lot of fun to play and replay, and if you haven't tried it out, I highly recommend it. It's definitely one of my favorite games of all time, and it certainly was a groundbreaking game, not only visually, but it showed developers just what they could do with the way that they laid out their single players. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.